Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and today we're leaving the onset of autumn behind. Today we're in North Africa in Morocco, and we've come to visit a garden that's regularly listed as one of the top gardens in the world. Expect to be wowed by stately plants, reflective water, shady walkways and contrasts of colour and form in this garden tour of the Majorelle. Welcome to Morocco and to this garden tour of the Majorelle in Marrakesh. Before diving into our garden visit, it's worth considering where this beautiful garden is situated. Marrakesh is a large, burgeoning city in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains. It dates right back to around the year 1070. Marrakesh is best known for its network of covered souks, a myriad of narrow, winding streets that lead through a series of smaller markets clustered by trade. The souks are colourful, busy, noisy and immense fun. All of that contrasts completely with the calm of the Majorelle garden. A hot, semi-arid climate predominates in Marrakesh, and average summer temperatures range from 26 to 30 centigrade, that's 79 to 86 Fahrenheit. In winter, the average is 12 degrees centigrade, which is about 54 Fahrenheit. Inside the Majorelle garden, however, the temperature is always mild, due to the many burbling streams and pools of water and the shade of climbers and palms. Let's now go into the Majorelle garden. This garden is a hectare in size, that's about 2.5 acres. It's almost 100 years old, although it has gone through major refurbishment in its time, mostly when the French fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent took it over, but we'll get into the history in just a moment. The garden hosts more than 15 bird species that are endemic to North Africa. It has many fountains and a notable collection of specimen cacti. It contains over 300 species of plants, from tall palm trees to plants which we would grow indoors at home. The garden is interlaced with pathways, mostly at a slightly higher level than the planting areas. Many paths are painted red. This contrasts with the bright yellow of large urns and the blue of the buildings. Majorelle blue is a name trademarked decades ago to describe the bold cobalt blue used in the Majorelle garden. This is a colour used traditionally in Moroccan tiles and adopted by the original creator of this garden. This strong colour works fabulously in the Moroccan sunshine. Jacques Majorelle was a French Orientalist painter. He came to Morocco in 1917 to convalesce from an illness and liked the place so much that he purchased a vast palm grove and decided to live here. He started work on his garden in 1923, a task that would occupy the next 40 years of his life. As an artist, Majorelle approached the garden build as he would approach the creation of a painting. Light and shadow were important elements, and he used specimen plants as much for their shadows and reflections as their botanic value. Water also had a dual purpose. It was important as much for its cooling abilities as for its reflective value. There's a long, narrow central basin and several other ponds and fountains. During his travels, Majorelle brought home plants from all around the world. He also corresponded with fellow gardeners worldwide, exchanging plant material. The enormous cacti in this garden, for example, are not indigenous to Morocco. Within about 40 years, Jacques Majorelle collected and cultivated 135 plant species. He collected plants from 5 continents and turned the property into a bewitching cornucopia of rare and common plants. There are climbers like bougainvillea and the pink trumpet vine known botanically as Podrania ricassoliana. There are yuccas, palms, bananas, bocarnias and coconut trees. There are houseplants, here grown outdoors, like the Swiss cheese plant Monstera deliciosa, Tradescantia, Gasteria, spider plants, and asparagus ferns. There are bamboo groves and water lilies, and then of course the extensive succulent and cacti collection. The iconic blue building in the Majorelle garden was commissioned of the architect Paul Sinoir. The brief was to build an artist's studio in the Art Deco style. In 1937, Jacques Majorelle painted the facade of his Art Deco studio in the blue colour for which this garden is now famous. He then went on to use Majorelle blue on gates, pergolas, pots and other buildings. This property was the residence of Jacques Majorelle and his wife from 1923 until their divorce in the 1950s. Jacques Majorelle ran into some difficulties. The garden proved very costly to run, forcing him to sell land and open the garden to the public in 1947. Then, in the 1950s, an acrimonious divorce and an unfortunate car accident took most of his finances. In the end, Jacques Majorelle did not pass away under the branches of the great trees of his beloved garden as he had wanted, but in a hospital bed in Paris. The gardens fell into disrepair after Majorelle's death in 1962, until in the 1980s there were rumours that it would be bulldozed for construction. At this point, the French fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent and his partner stepped in and bought the garden. They restored the now dilapidated garden, adding new plants and a museum. Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger were careful to stay true to the Majorelle vision. They revived the abandoned garden and enhanced the existing structures. They employed 20 gardeners to maintain the property and added 165 plant species to the existing catalogue. Saint Laurent increased the number of plant species from 135 to 300 and installed automatic irrigation systems. He and Berger lived in the villa, which they renamed Villa Oasis, and they redecorated it as an Orientalist fantasy. They turned Majorelle's studio into a museum of Islamic art pieces that they had collected, from vases and jewellery to swords. Finally, after Yves Saint Laurent's death in 2008, the garden was donated to the Foundation Pierre Berger Yves Saint Laurent. Today, this garden ranks as Morocco's most visited tourist attraction. Visit early in the morning as we have done to avoid the Instagram crowd. If you do, you'll appreciate this gem as it was intended, as a calm, shady space for relaxation and contemplation. The Majorelle garden is not a plants person's garden. It has wider appeal. I felt that many of the visitors here would never normally visit a garden, viewing it more as a work of art rather than an organic space. There are many things to love here. The garden is full of plants in pristine condition with space between them so they can be viewed individually or as part of a scene. There are dramatic and contrasting foliage textures and shapes. The strong blues and yellows of pots and fixtures look really striking against the green foliage of the garden. Because of the nature of evergreen plants, there aren't a lot of flowers, so the blues and yellows work well. Personally, I'm not a fan of the red paths as I find them jarring, but that may be just me. There are unexpected gems too, like cacti in bloom, mature caudex trees, and this furry little stapelia which has obliged us by opening its buds. But of course, the cobalt blue studio building, visible through a curtain of plant foliage, is iconic. And now we've come to the end of our visit to the Majorelle garden in Marrakesh. There will be 2 more Moroccan garden tour videos coming your way soon, so look out for them. If you want to make sure not to miss them or any of my future videos, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button. It really doesn't bite. On Sunday, you can expect a video from me on white flowers with late garden interest. And then next Thursday, join me for another longer garden tour. I'm back to my regular schedule now of posting videos twice a week. A short one on Sundays and a longer one like this one on Thursdays. Thank you for joining me today in the Majorelle garden. I'll see you soon. Bye!